Hey, everybody. Today I have for you podcast number 37. And today's podcast is titled, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network podcast where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you deserve. And I would also like to take a moment to thank all of the listeners out there, subscribers, people watching on YouTube, for tuning in to this week's podcast. Last week's podcast was a super big hit. We interviewed Katrina Potter, and to date, that's been our largest viewing audience. So super excited about that. If you missed last week's podcast, be sure to go back and check out that one because it was a keeper for sure. There was a lot of great content. And I love the feedback that I've been getting from all the different listeners. It's been super exciting to just kind of hear everybody's takeaways, right? Like what spoke to you. That really means something to me because it makes me realize that we're making an impact, and that's all that really matters when it comes down to this stuff. If we can deliver some content that makes a difference or an impact in your life that's positive, that's awesome. That's worth spending together. So thank you for your time. I know that, spending time listening to a podcast, everybody's time is valuable. So appreciate your time for tuning in and, help us help other people by subscribing and sharing. And if you even want to, there's no rules against writing us a review because that always boosts us up in the algorithm because we know algorithms, we don't know how they work, but they do something. So that's pretty sweet. So, all right, on with the show. Thank you. Lots of gratitude here. So awesome stuff. So now you see me, now you don't. So what does this have to do with? Well, this past week, starting on Sunday, I just had a lot of inspiration around trees. or I guess stories about trees or concepts about trees. Got to spend a lot of time in the Adirondacks all weekend with my family. But it really started with my daily devotional I was reading, and it was talking about trees and plants. Actually, it was talking about plants, and it talked about what you see above the surface as the plant, and then what you don't see is below the surface, right? Okay. And then I was listening to some content myself that I listen to every Monday. I listen to a podcast, and one of my mentors, Dr. Sean Dill, he was talking about redwood trees. I don't know why, but it just happened to coincide with what I was reading in my devotional. And he was talking about redwood trees being the tallest trees out there, 385 feet tall, and their roots only go 12 feet deep into the earth. Like that seems weird, right? Like how in the world could a tree 385 feet tall be supported and not fall over with roots that only go down 12 feet? Well, apparently those roots go out very wide and they're interconnected with other redwood trees that are surrounding it. And believe it or not, that root system also sprouts the undergrowth of new redwood trees. So literally, it's not like they grow from a seed. They literally grow from the root itself. So very, very interesting. He had a lot of great points about redwood trees, but I'm not actually going to use any of those points. But the fact that just seeing those two things, it kind of spoke to me and said, hey, this is where this week's podcast needs to go. So let's start with point number one. And I kind of touched on it already. And point number one is that the most important part is unseen. It's beneath the surface. So what in the world does that mean? It means that what people see in your life is not the most important part. They're looking at the cover of the book. What they don't realize is the behind the scenes stuff, which are the pages of the book, right? They don't know all of your history. They don't know what you do in private. They don't know what your thoughts are. But those are all the things that are super important, and they build you up to be who you are. And they also, the behind the scenes stuffs, the habits and behaviors and actions that you take when nobody's watching, those things also are what people see as who you are expressing as yourself. So that's so to speak would be the fruit in your life. So point number 2 is that a tree's fruitfulness will never exceed a tree's rootfulness. And that means this is that if you have a fruit-bearing tree, the amount of fruit that it can produce will never exceed the quality of its rootfulness. Its root structure will determine how fruitful that tree can produce, because that's the delivery system where all the nutrients from the earth are being delivered to the fruit that grows on the branches of the tree. And the same thing goes for our own life, and that is that if you want to express and bear more fruit in your life, you have to go back to the root, which is what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on in your private life. Like, you know what you put in your mouth for food. You know what level of sleep you're getting. You know what level of exercise. You know how hard you're studying for your exams and your tests. You know what kind of time you're spending reading your Bible. You know what you are and are not doing. You know whether you're a closet binge eater. You know whether you are a closet drinker or a closet smoker. Like, all these secret things that we do behind the scenes that nobody possibly knows about, or maybe it's on the sly. Yeah, that's true for everybody, right? So the fruitfulness in your life will never exceed the rootfulness in your life. So that is a huge one right there. Point number 3 is this: the deeper you go beneath the surface, the greater you will become above the surface. The deeper that you go below the surface, the greater that you will become above the surface. And how deep are you willing to go? You know, a lot of people have a very shallow, life, so to speak. In other words, they don't go too deep, and they don't want to get into the nitty gritty, the details. But if you look at somebody that's had success and fruit in their life, when what you'll see is that they've probably poured themselves into something in a very deep, meaningful way. And I think about, my son's in college and so forth. And I think about anybody studying to be something in school, right? If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an engineer, you want to be something, whatever that occupation or career is, you dive deep into that career. If you want to be a neurosurgeon, you dive deep into neurology and into the brain, but also into surgical techniques, right? Like, I know about neurology, I know about the brain, but I don't know it to the depth that they do. I have no idea how to perform brain surgery. I have no idea where to even begin. I know that there's got to be sterilization and so forth, but my point is that how deep you go will determine how big the life becomes above the surface. So think about, deeper below. So make it your aim to grow deeper in the hidden and secret places, right? Make it your aim to grow deeper in the hidden and secret places in your life, and they will bear much fruit. So how cool is that? So I can think about, I've definitely dedicated lots of time to a lot of different things, but when you dedicate time to a lot of different things, you never become a master at any of those things, right? Jack of all trades, master of none, right? But when you go deep into one thing and you really pour yourself into that one thing, and that becomes something that consumes you, that is where you start to gain that expert status. That is where you start to become a master. And when somebody begins to master something, it bears much fruit. Point number 4. Now, this is a totally different topic, but it's really super important, and it kind of ties into all of this stuff. And now it's going to shift a little bit more toward some mindset things. So point number 4, I got to tell a story, and it's a story about a famous golfer, Tiger Woods. And I don't know, I'm not a huge follower of golf, but I've always liked to see kind of Tiger Woods' competitiveness, especially early on in his career. And he was playing in a golf match. I'm not sure what the tournament was, but he hits this chip putt onto the green, about 25 feet onto the green. The ball lands, and then it starts to slowly roll down the hill on the green, and it gets right to the edge of the cup, and the ball stops right on the edge of the cup, and then all of a sudden it turns over. You see the Nike logo on the ball, and it drops into the cup. I mean, you couldn't have scripted like a more picture-perfect shot. I mean, it was literally the ball lands on the green, takes a hard turn, like almost like 90 degrees, like just trickles down this hill and just drops into the cup like perfectly. Like, I mean, to me, that's like a 1 in a million shot. Tiger Woods, well, he's doing it right in the middle of a tournament. Now, that's arguably one of the top shots ever captured on film, probably in a golf tournament or match. And, here it is in front of millions of people, and everybody's claiming that's the top shot ever, right? But what you don't realize what happened before that was that he totally shanked his previous shot. He totally bombed it past the green and did not hit the ball nearly even close to perfect of what he's capable of hitting. And so what you've got to realize is that sometimes, what seems like the absolute worst circumstance in the world is actually preparing you for a moment of greatness. Like that literally, if he didn't hit that horrible shot, it would have never set him up for the potential to hit one of the greatest shots ever. And I think that's happening in our lives all the time. God is preparing a path for us, and oftentimes in what seem like the worst circumstances possible. And all we have to do is stay focused, right? You could easily get down and say, oh my gosh, I'm X number of strokes behind. This shot just killed me. I'm going to be lucky to get this in 2. I might even hit 3. Like you could start going down the rabbit hole of negative, or you could be thinking, you know what? I'm going to sink this thing in the hole right now and just erase that bad moment that just happened. And that's what he did. So it's not a matter of like, oh, look what Tiger Woods did. It's a matter of like, what are you going to do, right? So we all have moments like that where we totally duff it, where we totally screw up. But the question is, what's your next shot? Are you going to hang your head, or are you going to actually like focus, bear down, and stay in the game, right? So that's point number 4. You have no idea what God's going to do with those situations. So stand firm. All right. So point number 5 is this, and this again goes back to your headspace. This goes back to, what people don't know what's below the surface, right? So here's the thing, when we get to a point where you care so much about how well you're going to represent, like how good you're going to be, right? Like if you care so much about just doing the best that you can possibly do. And I know so many people that are trying so hard to do their very best, and they're listening to this podcast and they're hanging on every word sometimes. And sometimes people are in a great place. Some people are not in a great place and they're looking for inspiration. But sometimes when you care so much that you actually don't care. And this is interesting. We oftentimes are just hesitant because we're afraid of making so many mistakes, right? But sometimes when you care so much and you know that you're right and you're just, you know what? I don't care this is what I'm going to do because I care so much about this particular thing I'm going after that I don't care what happens. I'm doing it. Like it's decisiveness, right? I care so much. I don't care. I might fail, but I'm going to go anyway, right? And that's a point of becoming fearless. And once you become fearless, you become limitless. Think about that. Once you become fearless, your limitations are lifted because now anything's possible. Anything's possible, right? That shot that Tiger Woods was able to hit became possible because in the face of all the potential, like what whoever is thinking, he didn't care, right? He didn't care. He just said, you know what? What do I got to lose? Either it's going in or it's not going in. I'm going to try it. I'm going to go for the shot, right? And that's, what are you going to do? Are you going to just take your shot, or are you going to sit there and you're going to just keep letting things go by? I don't know. I don't know about that one. I know about that one. I know about that one. Maybe that one. I don't know. And then you take your shot. And you know what? You might not make it. But you know what? You also may hit a home run. You may sink the putt. You may get the win. You don't know whatever you're going after. But you'll never know if you're worried about everything else, right? Care so much that you don't even care, right? So that's the point of being fearless. So all things are possible, right? Don't leave any possibility off the table. I was always told, don't ever remove hope, right? So hopefully today, that's 5 points. They came at you pretty quick. If you didn't get them all, you can go back and listen to them again. That's the beauty of recording these things. So that's all we have for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Be sure to tune in each and every week so that you can stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward reaching your goals by stripping away all your limitations. And we will see you next week.